change. Can you help Kenyans understand the various protocols and agreements, right from the Kyoto Protocol, the Paris Agreement, all the agreements that Kenyans have, and the success of it as a country?
Russell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Honorable Soipan, congratulations for your nomination. My question is on conservancies. What is coming up in recent times is individuals, groups, and NGOs are coming up with conservancies whose management falls outside the realm of government. And yet we know KWS and KFS are the two bodies that are vested with conservation, both physical and otherwise. What is your take in terms of having a centralized management system in terms of achieving synergy in conservation? Also on the same, Marsabit Forest and Marsabit National Park actually is the only park in the county of Marsabit. But yet currently we are experiencing the issue of animals straying outside the park and destroying people's properties and shambas. But the Act 2015 that was passed in the 11th Parliament was supposed to provide compensation. So do we still believe in that act if it cannot be enforced? Thank you, Chair.
Sharia.
Chair, I'll pass. My question was asked by
Thank you.
Mheshimiwa.
Thank you, Chair.
You should emulate Sharia.
Okay, Chair. My concern is about the rapid population growth in our urban cities. What will you do to ensure sustainable use of the environment and natural resources? For example, in your county, Kajiado, if you go to Kitengela, you'll see that the residents and the manufacturing, they are next doors. And many children are developing chest and respiratory problems. I don't know what you are going to do. I need to hear, because I think I would suggest you work with the county government. They do proper planning. Thank you.
Ferdinand. The Honorable. Soipan, congratulations for being nominated for this position. And I think from what you have presented today, I want to say congratulations too, because you seem to understand the ministry, the problem with the ministry and where we are. If you keep it up like that, I think the problem we have in this country will be a problem of the past. However, we may do so much as a country, but our neighbors, what mechanism are you going to employ to bring the cooperation between Kenya and the neighboring states, particularly the West, so that whatever we are doing here is actually copied elsewhere? Because climate change, I think, is basically a frustration out of you. We may do so much, and from what you are saying, then of course our neighbors don't do anything, so we just back to square one. So what are you doing? What are you going to do to be able to cooperate with the neighboring states? Because of the world in which we are today, seriously, actually, we just have to do something. But I think you're up to the task. Thank you.
Good. That's just a comment. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Mheshimiwa Soipan, let me hear your views as regards riverine afforestation, because we seem to be blaming climatic change for our rivers drying up, as a result of which population does not have water. Many of the rivers are now dry. They either be restored through massive afforestation, or we will just forget about ever having permanent rivers in Kenya. Number two, what about sand harvesting? Another man's destructive activity which is happening across the country. When these rivers dry up, people descend on them to make wealth by harvesting sand and selling it, as a result of which the problem deteriorates. What are your views on this?
Posing.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Soipan, I would like to hear, and many Kenyans would like to hear, what will you do that will really be like either a change or something new or something that will go into record that you came and you did when you're not the Minister for Environment, if this Parliament approves you. Now, I'm taking an example. If people were to talk about the late Michuki, they will remember Nairobi River. Your predecessor, people will remember about Mao. So what will you be remembered as Honorable Soipan having done? I don't think if these international meetings and so on will make you a name. What will make you a name? And finally, when people talk about environment, Honorable Chair, through you, Honorable Soipan, people talk about green areas. They talk about Mount Kenya, come to Mao, come to Nairobi. What about the drought that is going on now in this country? What is the relationship between that and also an environment? And when will the Minister for Environment will be known in the entire area from Lodwar to Tana River? Thank you, Chair.
Mishi, the Honorable.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Chair. To the nominee, I just want to talk about two areas which I feel that the minister, or rather the government, has not tapped on the potential it has. One, it is the issue of the mangrove forest, which is in Lamu and Tana River, and it's about 60% of the mangrove in Kenya. That is an area which you need to look at and know what plans you have to ensure that as part of afforestation, you can tap on that. The other issue is our e-country, the baobab. The information we are having right now, it is that there is a certain organization, and I think the name is Ariba Seaweed International Limited, which they have employed some guys in the area of Kilifi Tezo. They uproot these baobab trees and they transport it to Georgia in United States of America. So I think Kenya is a signatory to the Declaration on Deforestation and Land Use. So you need to check on this area and see how you can rescue these icon trees. The other issue, I want to echo what Mheshimiwa Mukami has just said on the issue of environmental assessment. We have mining in Coast Region in Kwale, and that is the titanium. So recently what we have found is there is some negative effect in terms of disease, and there is skin disease. So many people experiencing a skin disease as a result of the titanium. So this is also an area you need also to know. Anytime there is mining, you need to do an effective environmental assessment to know the impact, whether negative and even positive. I thank you.
Thank you. Soipan, you can proceed to answer or respond to those.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We'll start with a question by the Honorable Nelson Koech on the Mao Forest, the plight of the evictees. I know it's the subject of a court ruling that was made recently, but I must state that just like I said, in the process of conserving our environment, we must not forget the plight of Kenyans affected by certain actions that happen. Kenya is right in step with regards to the international standards on evictions and what to do with people affected by such evictions. And these are Kenyans, even from a human rights perspective, who still have dignity bestowed upon them. And I will not talk much about it. I don't know if the case is a subject of appeal, but it definitely is a matter that we cannot close our eyes to in terms of the plight of the affected communities. Honorable Hamisi, I will make sure to keep my hands off the public coffers so that if I ever get vetted by any such committee of parliament, that my file remains clean. On the global discourse around climate change, Yes, Kenya is signatory to the Paris Agreement and the attendant Kyoto Protocol. We have so many other multilateral environmental agreements that Kenya is party to. Actually, the ministry has a fully fledged department that deals with multilateral environmental agreements. They come with a number of obligations and frameworks for engagement of Kenya with the globe, with the nations of the globe. From my past experience as a lawyer and having worked in various capacities with international and regional fora, I'm going to make sure that Kenyans gain maximally from each and every instrument, regional or international, that we sign to ensure complete domestication according to the Constitution. Honorable Dido Raso, the question of conservancies and the uncoordinated manner of conservancies, I think this is an area which falls squarely on my colleague in the docket of tourism and wildlife, because the conservancies are not actually under the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. But I always struggle between where does the conservation of the environment start and where does that of conservation and management of our wildlife start. I mean, they are very closely linked. That I know that in the course of my duty, once confirmed for this, I will have to confront such matters, because it is conservancies are everything to do with the environment. Conservancies and wildlife are actually about it's about conservation, and so I will endeavor to engage with my counterpart once confirmed in the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife to look into the issues that you have raised, because indeed there has to be coordination to make sure that any new models of conservation are in step with the need for good governance and sustainability, taking into account the interests of the conservancy adjacent communities. On the question of the Marsabit National Park, again, the question of human-wildlife conflict is a menace that is affecting our communities. The need to actualize the law on compensation. I will not delve much into that again because it is not within my docket, but I know I will be confronting that. And at the ministerial level, I would be keenly interested even to work closely with a colleague in charge of that particular area of concern. The Honorable Mukami, high population growth in our urban areas and the establishment of industries, some very harmful. We are currently confronted with a number of litigation around effects of environmentally unfriendly industrial developments that have happened in residential areas. This squarely falls under the National Environmental Management Agency, under my docket, and it is a question of really looking at the effectiveness of the processes that we are currently employing in environmental impact assessment to make sure that we do not compromise the quality of life of Kenyans. Because at the inception stages of every project, the question of proximity to human life has to be taken into account, especially industries, which might be the subject of hazardous emissions. So I can assure you that it will be an area of keen concern to make sure that our environmental impact assessments are being employed in the proper manner. Honorable Wanyonyi, the question of collaboration between Kenya and its neighbors, very critical. We might come up with very good policies and climate actions within Kenya, but then the same actions get compromised because of the action or inaction of our neighbors. And that is the reason why we have regional and international fora where we engage our neighbors. And that is the reason why we have, I know I will be able to do, is that Kenya being the holder of the chairmanship of the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change at the ministerial level, because Kenya is at the chairmanship, I know my role will be critical at the ministerial level. I will endeavor to create a rapport and good working relationship with my colleagues in the region at the ministerial level, once confirmed, again to be able to address these matters of critical concern. The East African Community is a forum again where these matters will be prosecuted at various levels, at the presidential level, ministerial level, where we can be able to find synergy in terms of the direction we take on climate action and environmental protection.
Yeah, I just want to let the appointee know that I am on the border. I get a lot of traffic of charcoal all the way from Uganda.
Yeah.
And they're actually destroying that area, coming to us. We are very strict. When you get the charcoal dealers, they tell you they are from Uganda.
Yeah.
So there's nothing actually stopping them from doing what you are doing. Thank you so much.
Resistance, yes. Next.
I actually have one more question.
From
Three members.
Murugara,
Three actually.
Hussein,
Honorable
Nish.
Murugara, riverine afforestation. Yes, we can blame so many things on climate change, but within that climate change crisis is a huge percentage of our own contribution. I'm alive to that fact, Honorable Murugara. And I'm going to create a mechanism through which we can rally Kenyans to embrace environmental integrity, yeah, and behavioral change right from your own household, and that can be done. Yes, the issue of sand harvesting, again, we may hide our heads in the sand on matters sand harvesting, but it's actually a source of income for millions of Kenyans. But at what expense? Our rivers are drying up. We need to interrogate this. Again, this is a function under the county governments, but NEMA plays a critical role when it comes to, if there's need to look at, appropriate sand harvesting areas, I'm just thinking, we need to engage seriously. And it is the same with the charcoal trade, where there's a ban, yet a huge percentage of our populace depend on this particular trade. So this I'm going to take head on, and we should have some clear direction, because we cannot continue destroying ourselves as we watch. Honorable Kosing, what I will be remembered for, I am focusing on two critical things: circular economy, to deal with our waste management menace. Greening Kenya, again, is going to be very big for me, and I will make sure that by the end of my tenure, everybody will remember me for these two. Honorable Mishi Mboko, the issue of mangrove forests, very critical. It has become a fragile ecosystem. When we talk about the biggest carbon sinks, mangrove forests come at the top, followed by bamboo and other tree species. Within the ambitious plan that the President has rolled out, at the key core of it is the need to reclaim our mangrove ecosystems because of the critical role they play. I am made to understand that one species of mangrove in the area of carbon sequestration is equal to about 10 terrestrial trees. So that's how important it is. On the question about baobab uprooting or cutting, I would be interested. Once I get confirmed, kindly come to my office and brief me on this one, because we must take immediate action.
Do you mean illegal export?
Honorable Chair, at the moment,
some photos, yeah.
we have a total ban on logging, so it cannot be legal.
Actually, she's not talking of logging. She's talking of uprooting and then exporting live trees.
So I think it's one and the same thing.
That is the work of KEFIS, which is still under your ministry.
They term it biopiracy.
Yes.
Biopiracy.
Yes, I think it is still affecting our trees. You know, whether they cut, uproot, or fell, it's still destruction. And I would want to understand in which context that is happening. So, Honorable Mishi, please pray for me to get confirmed and come over and we talk Honorable Mokami on environmental impact assessments. And I think I have spoken to that in depth.
Give Dawood the last bite.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I already gave you an opportunity.
Chair, Honorable Soipan has talked about air pollution. She's talked about water pollution. Honorable Soipan, what about noise pollution? There are bars and restaurants who play loud music in residential areas, not just in Nairobi, all over the country. So we need to know how that can be sorted out, because there must be some law regarding the timings and sound protection and all that. Thank you.
Emase, you'll be the last for now.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable nominee, you realize that for you to be able to achieve your objectives, you need a robust, vibrant, and a motivated team. There's the issue of welfare. And I want to give this a question that has just been sent to me by a Kenyan, a concerned Kenyan. For example, KFS, they do not have a medical cover, a comprehensive medical cover. So when one of them falls sick or is injured, assuming it's a forest ranger, they have to do a fundraising or take a loan to be able to address to that particular challenge. Then two, there is no risk allowance for these forest rangers. Then number three, they are address that challenge, because without a motivated staff, you may not be able to realize your objectives. Thank you.
Excellent. You can answer those two.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Yes, the question of noise pollution, it's huge. Again, being a devolved function, we must work closely in collaboration with the county governments to make sure that the licensing of some of these businesses have to take into cognizance the location, proximity to other establishments that may not. Somebody wrote me a text the other day saying that there is very loud music from a discotheque which has been constructed or established right next to a children's hospital. You know, so these are real issues that Honorable Dawood, again in very close collaboration with the different players, I will take up to ensure that we are well regulated and coordinated in how we do our planning, setting up a discotheque next to a hospital or a church next to, or a mosque for that matter, next to areas where we can really be able to plan ourselves well. Honorable Emase, the question of the human resource and making sure that I have a well-motivated team. As you would know, the docket is very wide with a lot of work, and this would be greatly compromised if I do not have the right manpower. For example, the Kenya Forest Service, we are talking about greening the country. The Kenya Forest Service is at the core of that ambitious program. I will be reviewing the current terms of engagement. I have already gotten reports about understaffing, and we'll be looking at the other welfare matters in collaboration with the Public Service Commission to make sure that, as we become ambitious about tackling climate action, then we must have Kenyans owning the process. And least of all is the people who are working within the ministry. So thank you for raising that, and it will be a matter that I'll take up as of immediate concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Soipan. I'll give you 3 minutes to tell us your final wish.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I take this opportunity once again to thank the members of the committee, starting with yourself, Mr. Speaker, and former colleagues. Yes, former, because I'm a member of the Senate. I'm still having a challenge, understanding that I'm no longer a member of the National Assembly. I am very grateful for this chance and opportunity, and thank you for the questions raised. They have been of a great challenge, really, and just reminding me of the heavy responsibility on my shoulders, the matters that are very real, the globe over, which are subjects of the current geopolitics and the global recession, because again, Honorable Chair, there is a very intricate link between environmental issues, poverty, and the well-being of Kenyans. So I understand the monumental task ahead of me, and once confirmed, I'm looking forward to good working relations with the House, the National Assembly, to make sure that we push through some of the immediate legislative and policy issues that we require to actualize our plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now release you to go to your other duties. And Sergeant, you can show the nominee the way out. And thank you for saving us 1 minute and 11 seconds. You are now released. We are adjourned up to 2:16. You may